Dantes, Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So as good of a relationship as Eddie Hearn has with Canelo Alvarez, all of the catering that he has done to keep working with Canelo Alvarez, all of the defending Eddie Hearn has been doing, he finally admits that his working relationship with Canelo Alvarez may be coming to an end. And when I say coming to an end, I'm talking about very soon. Because immediately following Canelo Alvarez's loss to the underdog, Dimitri Bivol, Eddie Hearn, he admitted, he said, I don't think he'll go beyond the 3-fight deal. And I think that's fine, end quote. Now, I've been telling you guys, ever since Canelo lost to Bivol, it is now going to be extremely hard for Canelo Alvarez to get those very easy cherry pick type of opponents. And what Eddie Hearn just said right there confirmed my suspicions. Because not only does Eddie understand that when it comes to the big fights, after a possible rematch against Bivol, only PBC has real big fights for Canelo Alvarez. With the Charlo fight, remember, they had offered Canelo Alvarez the biggest payday that he would have ever made for one single fight to fight Charlo. And Canelo turned it down to take the Bivol offer. Every single time a poll was put out on who fans want to see Canelo Alvarez fight, Charlo was always the #1 opponent. Now you're hearing a lot of fans, a lot of boxers saying they want to see Canelo Alvarez fight his mandatory, David Benavidez. So regardless if it's Charlo or David Benavidez, we know that both of those fighters are PBC fighters. So not only is Eddie Hearn acknowledging that he doesn't have the big names to offer Canelo Alvarez, but I think the most important point Eddie Hearn was making is even with the fighters that Dazn still has that they could offer Canelo Alvarez, they're not going to pay Canelo Alvarez $35 million to fight John Ryder. Eddie Hearn is telling Canelo Alvarez, you might as well go ahead and take the big fights over there at PBC because we can no longer afford to pay you to fight against C or D level opponents, which is the worst news for Canelo Alvarez. Now listen, guys, this is not to suggest that no promotional company is willing to give Canelo Alvarez a soft touch type of opponent. They may give him one, but the problem is that soft touch opponent is most likely going to be attached to a dangerous opponent. Just like Dazn, they gave him the third Golovkin fight, right, against a 40-year-old Golovkin, but he had to also fight Bivol. Just like PBC, they were willing to give Canelo a much smaller Errol Spence, but he would also have to fight Jamal Charlo. No one is going to pay Canelo Alvarez $35 million in a one-fight deal to fight against cherries. I remember way before Canelo signed the Bivol deal, he announced that he was going to fight Makabu next. And my reporter Skip actually was interviewing Eddie Hearn, and we had Skip ask Eddie Hearn, was it because of the backlash of Canelo trying to fight Makabu that Canelo and you guys are no longer talking about a Makabu fight? And Eddie Hearn, doing his best trying to defend Canelo, he said there was no backlash when Canelo said he was going to fight Makabu. And Skip asked Eddie Hearn something like, so you guys would pay him to fight against Makabu? And Eddie said, man, we'll probably pay him more. Like, you know, saying that they would pay him big time money, like the type of money they would pay him to fight a Bivol or a Golovkin a third time. That turned out to be completely untrue because shortly after Eddie Hearn said that, we find out that Dazn, which includes Eddie Hearn, they never offered Canelo Alvarez a Makabu fight. Instead, they offered him much tougher fights, like one against Bivol and one against Gennady Golovkin. And it was because Eddie and Dazn, they knew that there was no way they would make any kind of money trying to make a Canelo versus Makabu fight, especially if they're paying Canelo Alvarez $30 million. Hell, even if they're paying him $20 million. Dazn, they would lose a ton of money trying to put that together. So now it's going to be really interesting to see what Canelo Alvarez decides to do next. Because once again, that quote that I read, what Eddie Hearn said, that was following Canelo Alvarez's loss to Bivol. That was back in May when he said that. Now, the Bivol versus Ramirez fight is coming up really soon. And believe it or not, which I think is kind of surprising, actually, old media, they've been putting a lot of pressure on Canelo Alvarez to take the Bivol rematch. And if Bivol beats Ramirez, which I believe he will, but it won't be that easy of a fight. Assuming Bivol wins that fight, it's going to be very difficult for Canelo Alvarez to justify not taking the rematch. Because if he doesn't take it, that would mean that he has 2 losses on his record and never avenge any of those defeats. So yeah, man, it's starting to get real ugly for Canelo Alvarez right now. You know, for a while, I've been telling you guys way before Canelo fought Bivol. I told you guys, the 2 fighters that Canelo loses to, hands down, is Bivol and Andrade. Now, when it comes to Canelo versus Benavidez, I've always gave the slight edge to Benavidez, but now I believe that Benavidez and Charlo, they all beat Canelo Alvarez hands down. Not to mention David Morrell. He's another one. But since I know that that's so far from reality of that fight ever taking place, that's the reason why I wasn't even going to include his name. Because David Morrell is like a new and improved Edeslani Lara. He's a southpaw Cuban just like Lara, but the difference is Morrell, he can fight on the inside and the outside. He's very comfortable either way. Not to mention he would also have a serious height and reach advantage over Canelo Alvarez. So when Eddie Hearn says that he sees his relationship, his working relationship, coming to an end with Canelo Alvarez, it is not that surprising. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
My name is Chris, and I'm all the way here from Anchorage, Alaska at Scalp Carolinas, and I'm here for my second treatment of SMP. Well, I was sitting at home one day and going over my Facebook page, and they have different, like advertisements popping up, and I saw one for SMP, and I saw some pictures of some guys, a before and after, and I was looking at that, and it caught my attention, so I Googled it. SMP, nothing showed up in my area. So, I did a little more research, and all of a sudden, Scalp Carolinas popped up in the web browser. So I started watching his videos and seeing all the reaction from all the other people. We talked on the phone, we made appointments and everything. I sent him pictures, and he looked at them, and I was like, can you fix this? And, he pretty much said, no problem. My first session, he made me feel extremely comfortable. It was almost like I was talking to family. He started, and during the whole treatment, we talked and, about our families and our life and, and things that he does and things that I do. And before I know it, the first session was over. When you see someone doing something that they love, as much as I see Enoch Glover love what he does, it shows in his work. I wouldn't point anyone in any other direction but here to North Carolina, Scalp Carolinas, to get this done.
Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.